again. My name's Tiffany and I'm the dietitian and lactation counselor with the Hamilton County WIC program. Today I want to talk about the different signs your baby gives when they are ready to eat. The first thing I ask parents about their feeding schedule with their baby is, what are the signs that you look for that your baby is getting hungry? And the typical response is that the baby is crying. Unfortunately, crying is the last stage of hunger. So when they start crying, typically they've been trying to tell you they're hungry for a little while, and now they're at a stage where they're hangry. Usually when they've reached that crying stage, the feeding is more difficult. So when you try to latch them on, they might resist. So they'll push against your breast, they'll turn their head side to side, they might even throw their head back. And they are basically so hungry that they're not even sure what to do with themselves. When they're doing that, mom gets frustrated because she says, "What am I doing wrong? Why isn't the baby latching?" When in fact, if you can catch the early signs of hunger, the feeding is much better because the baby is much more patient. So instead of trying to feed a baby when they're crying, you should really be looking for their early signs of hunger. So a baby's early signs of hunger can be when they're still sleeping, actually. So when they're still sleeping, they're going to start to stir a little bit. They might start moving their knees kind of in a crawling position. That would actually be a good time to go ahead and strip them down, do some skin to skin, and try to initiate that latch. That's going to be when they're the most relaxed, and so they'll be more patient when they come to the breast. Then they'll start moving their head side to side. I don't know if you've ever seen a baby try to root, but basically they open their mouth and they turn their head to the side, kind of like this. Basically, they're trying to latch onto something. Even if you are not mom and you're holding them, they might turn and it looks like they're trying to breastfeed from you. That's a sign they're starting to get hungry as well. So if you see them turn their head to the side and open their mouth, go ahead and latch them on. Then they're going to start sucking on their hands or bring their hands to their mouth. So they're kind of nomming on their hands. That's a sign that they're getting hungry and they're starting to do that sucking motion. That's a great time to latch them on. They might start to get a little bit grunty. That's still a good time to latch them. They're still pretty calm, but at this point they're starting to get a little bit more impatient. So the sooner the better. So doing that skin to skin immediately and trying to get that latch at that point. Once you have reached the stage of crying, which will happen, I mean, in the middle of the night, you're not going to hear their knees moving while they're sleeping. You're going to be awoken by a crying baby. So once they've reached that crying stage, like I said, the feeding can be pretty difficult. It can be frustrating. So you actually want to try to calm them down first. So before you ever latch them on, do some skin to skin. You can try to bounce them. They really love repetitive motions. But a lot of times I have found that if you place baby right on your chest with their head where your heart is, where they can hear your heartbeat, they calm down pretty fast. This is a great time for the partner to help. In the middle of the night, they can do some skin to skin to calm the baby before you start the breastfeeding session. So go ahead and calm them down first, and then try to initiate that latch, just so you don't have that frustration from the baby. So since a baby has such a tiny tummy and they are eating so frequently, you're gonna feed about every 2 to 3 hours. And when you breastfeed, we do want you to offer both sides because that can help with your milk supply as well. Usually what happens is you latch on one side, they'll feed for about 10 to 15, maybe even 20 minutes, and then they will come off the breast. At this point, you want to go ahead and try to burp them and then offer the other side. And you might notice they take that side for about 10, 15, 20 minutes as well. So in total, the feeding will be about 30 to 45 minutes. Babies actually have a gas gauge, I like to call it. But with that, when they're really hungry, like we talked about, their hands are tight up by their face, and they might be even eating on their hands. That's a sign they're hungry. In the middle of a feeding, you might notice their hands are starting to relax and come down to their sides a little bit, but they're still a little tight. And then when you offer that other side and they finish on that side, their hands should be open and relaxed and maybe even dangling down on their sides. That's a sign that they're full. Even if they're still awake after the feeding and they're kind of looking around, we still want them to look relaxed. If they're still tight and eating on their fist, that means the feeding might not be over. So go ahead and re-offer that first side if you need to. If you have any questions or concerns, contact your local WIC office. Have a good day.